Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Aishwarya, Product Manager for Freshcaller. Freshcaller is a telephony product in the Freshworks suite of customer engagement. It is built using the Twilio programmable voice APIs and is being used by global businesses to power the support use cases for their call center teams. So today we're super excited to share with you our learnings from our journey in detecting and preventing fraud in a telephony product like Freshcaller. Deepak, one of our lead software engineers, will be taking you through this journey remotely. So super excited to hear your feedback after the session. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for coming to my talk. I'm Deepak Senbabu, lead software engineer working for the product Freshcaller at Freshworks. In this talk, I'm going to take you all through the journey of our product Freshcaller in detecting and preventing fraud. Hello from Freshcaller again. So Freshcaller is a modern phone system on the cloud built completely using Twilio's programmable voice APIs. It's a plug and play cloud PBX. It's quick to do setup. Once you sign up, you can easily purchase phone numbers to start making and receiving calls in no time. So we launched globally in the late 2017. We solved different challenges to make sure that we provide a simple and hassle-free user experience to the users by providing single field sign up on the website, which is simply an email. So with that email, you can sign up for a Freshcaller account. And once you get the account, we'll give you a free trial and free credits so that you can try out different features of the product. So it was very easy to get into the system that day. We felt very happy. We were seeing a lot of signups happening. We were seeing a lot of momentum gaining. And one day we received an email from Twilio fraud operations team saying that, hey, one of your sub accounts is suspended because of the suspicious activity. And these are all the list of calls that's been made in that particular account. And these are all the charges associated to that account, to those calls. We were actually analyzing that particular account, what happened to that. We were seeing a lot of calls actually went to single or same set of numbers. What we also found in that email that was sent by Twilio is also is about fraud information to actually learn more about a type of fraud called toll fraud. So that's when we actually heard about this term toll fraud. So that was the hidden cost actually associated with the easier experience that we gave to the system, to pay to the users to get into the system. So when we were studying about this toll fraud, we actually found out that 30% of our signups were by these fraudsters. We were like, wow, what were these guys doing it? What is this toll fraud means? What is this toll fraud? So before understanding this toll fraud, we need to understand what a premium phone number is. A premium phone number is something that you can purchase from a provider, and any call that goes to that particular premium phone number will be at a higher rate, and a cut from that particular charge will be given to the owner of that premium phone number. So this particular business model is actually exploited by these fraudsters, and this type of fraud is called toll fraud. So this toll fraud is also known as international revenue sharing fraud, because these calls actually go across different boundaries, different countries. And since they go between different countries, it's very difficult to deal them legally as well. So in terms of statistics, in the year 2015, there were close to $38 billion were lost due to this telecom fraud. So this actually includes toll fraud as well. In 2017, this actually came down a bit to $29 billion. And if you look at the graph, from 2008, it was actually coming down slowly towards 2017. Since we actually launched in the year 2017, we joined this $29 billion club in a bad way. We had to do something to actually stop these frauds happening in our Freshcaller. So the first step is to understand more about these frauds. to understand what they were actually doing within within the accounts that they create. So when we did break down this particular enemies usages, we found that these three things they were doing it. First, they will try to gain access to different Freshcaller accounts by using different email addresses. So it is basically email abuse and account abuse. So once they get access to these accounts, they will start exploiting the free credits that we provided. So that's the first step they used to do. So once they exploit those free credits, they'll start making payment frauds by making use of stolen credit cards. So with those stolen credit cards, they started purchasing a lot of credits. So with those credits, then they actually take on the system by exploiting different features, and they'll also find out bugs in the system and exploit them as well. So, so after studying all these usages by these frauds, we had to fight back. So for any fighting back, we have to come up with a strategy. So we used a strategy called layered defense. A layered defense is a term given by Tim Byers and Stephen from Tulio's team in the last year's Signal talk. So we used same defense in our Freshcaller. We built something called Freshcaller Anti-Fraud Cop, which actually employs defense in multiple layers in our system to make sure these frauds don't get into the system, or even if they get in, they don't exploit much. So I will explain all these three layers in the next few slides. So basically, we put up these defenses in three important layers, where the sign up layer, and then in the payment layer, and then the actual usage layer. So first, in the sign up layer, when we realized that these accounts were actually signed up to exploit these free credits, we first thought to stop giving these free credits at all. But then if we stop those free credits, then definitely it's going to be a bad experience for the actual customers who are going to use the system. So we came up with a list of free email providers, which is a big list. We got that repo, and we then identified account sign up using those emails, and we stopped giving credits for those particular accounts. And after that, we also added a check for the email validity. So obviously, simple valid regex is not going to help. So we took a step above, and then we did a quick lookup on the DNS during sign up. We'll see if there is any MX record associated with the domain of the email. So MX record will tell you whether a particular domain has a valid email destination or not. So if there is no MX record, obviously that email is invalid. So we don't provide sign up for those email account as well. We also stored IP addresses for all the signups that's happening. And if we find out a toll fraud that's happening on any account in the next layers, then we'll obviously block those accounts. And if there are any such blocked accounts from the IP address, then we will stop allowing signups from that particular IP address. So these were the steps that we did in the sign up layer. So this stopped most of the quick account exploits that those were happening. So once these fraudsters passed this particular layer, they started making payment fraud by using stolen credit cards. So this is something that we didn't have control. So we obviously didn't have payments data. So we had to have a better payment system integration to make sure that these transactions won't go through. So we actually integrated with the better payment system that time. So that system helped us in stopping more than 90% of the transactions which were actually happened via stolen credit cards. So they helped they helped a lot in solving that particular area. But still, closer to 10% of such transactions gone through and came into the system. So we implemented rate limiting in the credit purchases itself. So rate limiting is like we won't allow more than X dollars per day, more than Y dollars at once. So we implemented such rate limiting in the payment layer. So with these sign up and payment layer defense, we filtered most of the fraud accounts usage. But still, there were a few accounts they passed these particular defenses and actually got into the system and started exploiting the features. So in the monitoring layer, we usually look into the features that will allow users to make or route calls to the external phone number. So in a telephony system like us, we'll obviously have an outgoing call dialer where users can put in their phone number, then they can make calls. So the obvious monitoring use case for us was to just look into the high volumes of outgoing calls to the same set of numbers. In a real world scenario, there may be maximum 10 to 15 calls to a single number or same set of numbers within 1 hour. So that's what we found out. So these toll frauds usually happen in a large volume. When I say large volume, it will easily start with 20 to 30 outbound calls to the same number within 30 minutes. So we can put that as a threshold. So we had actually put that as a threshold to actually flag a particular account as an abnormal usage or not. So similar to outgoing calls, we had other use cases. One other use case is like external transfer. So during a call, an agent can actually transfer the call to the external phone number. And that external phone number can be, again, a premium phone number. And another use case is like an agent can actually put in mobile number on their profile so that when an incoming call comes to that system, come to Freshcaller account, it will route calls to the mobile number of the agent. So these fraudsters, what they'll do is they will basically purchase toll-free numbers that we provide, that Tulio provides. So these toll-free numbers will be set up in that account, and they will put all the premium phone numbers on their account, on their profiles. So when an incoming call comes in, obviously, since those numbers are toll-free numbers, they don't incur any charge. So they will pump in large number of calls to the system, and those calls will be routed by Freshcaller to the agent's mobile phone number. And in this case, those are premium phone numbers. And this is how they were actually performing toll fraud. So we were looking around features like these in our system, which will allow users to make or route calls to the external phone numbers. So similarly, you can also look out for the features of your product that will allow the users to route calls to the external phone numbers. So with these three filters in place, Freshcaller Anti-Fraud Cop was able to help us solving most of the fraud usages. So on top of this Freshcaller Anti-Fraud Cop, we also used Tulio's powers. We used a couple of Tulio's powers that helped a bit above than the Freshcaller Anti-Fraud Cop that we already have. So one of the beautiful Tulio's powers is this voice geographic permissions. So if you look at, so this is a screenshot from the Tulio's console, which beautifully shows low risk category and high risk category. And within each category, there is continent, country, and region level number prefixes. You can go and actually disable all the high risk numbers. And in fact, in the low risk category also, you can disable all the regions where you feel that your customers won't be making calls to. So these voice geographic permissions were available with both Tulio master account and Tulio sub account as well. So by default, sub accounts permissions will be inheriting the master's permissions, but you can actually disable inheritance on each sub account if you want to provide specific permissions for account by account basis. And all these changes can be done using Tulio's REST APIs. So Tulio also provided top 10 toll fraud destinations on their block, which you can actually block in the high risk and low risk categories. We also found these toll fraud destinations, those were happening within Freshcaller when these frauds were happening. So these fraud destinations were in addition to the list of destinations that Tulio already provided. So these destinations typically into Pacific and Caribbean islands and and mostly in the African regions. But if you start blocking all these destinations, obviously fraudsters will try to find out new regions, but these regions are very, very high prone to the toll fraud. And the next power that we used from Tulio is the usage trigger. Usage trigger is something which you can configure within Tulio, where if a certain thing happens in Tulio, do this particular action. So so in the usage trigger category, there are different Twilio entities that you can configure. So one such example I showed here is calls. So I have configured in such a way that if for any account, if if the total price of calls goes above $75 per day, it will trigger an action. An action can be of two types. It's an email, or another thing is webhook. So webhook is what we configured. In the webhook, we can write down our own minimal application, which you can perform, like you can probably suspend a sub account, or you can send another email from there. So we developed in such a way that with the webhook, it will actually make a call to the administrators saying that this particular account has crossed this particular threshold. So we also have another threshold, so this is $75 per day. We also have another one saying $200. If you cross $200, automatically sub account will be suspended, and we'll also inform the administrator on that particular thing. So these two powers, along with Freshcaller Anti-Fraud Cup, actually helped a lot in bringing down the fraud usage in Freshcaller. We started somewhere close to 30% fraud sign-up percentage, and we are now closer to 0%. So here the battle is won, but the war goes on, because every day we add new feature to the Freshcaller. When new feature gets in, we obviously have a new exploit. There is a possibility of new exploit. So obviously we have to fight continuously. Fighting fraud is not simply a mindset. It is a continuous process that you have to always look in terms of fraud perspective to find if there are any new features that are getting into the system, have any new exploit for these fraudsters to do toll fraud. You have to get into the shoes of fraudsters to think in terms of that. It's not just you. Every team member of yours should be having this fighting fraud in their DNA. With all these things in place, you still have to monitor continuously. So you can also do it. I have shared here a few articles from Freshworks and Twilio. I've also shared Twilio Signal Talk from last year, where Tim Byers and Stephen talked about this fraud usages and how you can actually solve them. So this is the journey of Freshcaller so far. We have actually learned a lot from Twilio's, and we did several things to actually block these fraud usages, and we will continue to do so in the years to come. And I hope you'll also implement these things on your products too. Thank you.
Just want to check if there are any quick questions that I can help answer.
Yeah, thanks very much. Hey, Deepak, do you want to put yourself on screen again and stop sharing your slides? Unfortunately, Deepak's visa wasn't allowed to come into the US, which is why we've been doing this remotely, so my apologies for that. But if anybody has any questions for him, they've struggled with a lot of toll fraud because they went into this not really being aware of a lot of the types of toll fraud that can exist when you're building on top of Twilio. So if you are suffering or if you're going to be exposing any sort of telephone numbers on your application or your website, this is something you really want to be aware of. And so why we've got Deepak, who's here and is hot on the topic. Anybody want to ask him any questions? No. Cool. All right, well, thanks very much, Deepak, and I appreciate you coming, and enjoy the rest of the show. Thanks very much, everybody. Goodbye.